We're Hassani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. I'm Jeff Witt.
And I'm Roland.
All right, Roland. And we want to get things started today on a topic that I think is important. 10 ways you can find out why and how, if your marriage is falling apart. So we're going to begin today by getting into it a little bit. Things that you should be looking for, signs that you should identify and begin working on immediately. We always encourage people to get help, but some of these things you can prevent just by noticing them and taking action immediately. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to get into it. All right? See you on the other side. Okay, that didn't work. Let me see here. And we're back. So let's get into the first sign that we can tell if your marriage might be failing. One of the first things that we see is that you'll start feeling lonely inside of your marriage. Now, this isn't some kind of temporary loneliness that happens once in a while when people become busy or life gets a little hectic. It's more of a ongoing loneliness that happens, that you find yourself getting more and more distant, more and more isolated, and feeling alone inside of the marriage. And this can really, really be one of the signs. Now, I would challenge you to think that, maybe it's not just one sign. There should be multiple signs that your marriage is failing. It shouldn't just be one particular thing, because there's seasons that we all go through. What do you think, Roland?
Absolutely. I mean, it's seasons, and a lot of times it's circumstantial. Frustration of your job, or especially if you have parents that might be ill and stuff like that, you could feel lonely or become distant with one another. And a lot of times we allow the stresses of work to get in the way, because we're pressured at work, and then we bring it home, and that tends to be the demise sometimes of the marriage, of feeling like you're alone, because we're putting so much pressure on our spouses because we're getting pressure from work. And so it could be very detrimental if you're not cautious or paying attention to it. And it can be subtle. It's like a subtle transition of it coming. You have to work late or whatever the case may be. You're working on different projects, but when they pile up, it tends to be it festers, if you would, and it becomes that wedge between you and your spouse, and sometimes you don't even realize it before it has overtaken you.
Yes, that's very, very true. It does kind of creep in there. Another way that you can also tell, one of the second signs, is that you don't feel safe talking about finances together. Now, this is also one of those ones that can be iffy, right? So there are certain situations that come up, and you may be able to handle them and quickly. And if you have a spouse like mine who gets ultra paranoid when any financial situation comes around, no matter what it is. And so sometimes people go a little radio silent while they're fixing it. They're in the process of fixing it. But if you notice that this is a recurring issue, that every time something goes wrong, you can't have a discussion about it. You can't bring it up. You can't talk about anything related to finances. This is the source of arguments and fighting. This might be a sign that things are starting to fail in the marriage. When there was open and honest communication in the beginning, and all of a sudden someone starts to hide something, that can be a really strong sign that things are starting to fail in the marriage.
Absolutely. When, as a union, you should be able to come together as a team to conquer those fears of talking about things that may be uncomfortable. And a lot of times, some spouses may be, one may be better with the finances than others, but then we have those spouses that want to hide accounts. We want to hide what we're doing. We want to hide where we've been. And that becomes the argument because I don't want you in my business. Don't want you to know what's going on with me. And yes, it's going to always be an argument when you cannot come on one accord to talk about the things that matter. Your household has to function based on how you talk about your finances, and a lot of times we don't want to do that because we want to hide what we're really doing.
I also want to just bring up that, a lot of people like to sweep this one under the rug. But the two top reasons, we get a lot on the number, like one of what we think is the number one reason, but the two top reasons that literally alternate back and forth on why the reasons people have a failed marriage or even go into divorce is finances and infidelity. Those are the two top things. And a lot of times what we find is that they're combined.
Yes.
Right. And so when we see finances going a little bit funny and relationships breaking up for that, and we see people don't realize that they're about equal in the reasons for divorce. Yeah. And so 60% of the population that gets married is probably going to get divorced in their lifetime. That is a crazy, ridiculous statistics that's not going on the side of marriage. So we have to begin to work and notice these signs. I want to actually talk about something a little more positive real quick because I forgot to acknowledge it at the beginning. We just got back from Las Vegas. I know Hassani and Danielle are there now. They renewed their wedding vows. And in a little private thing with friends, they're going to do another thing with the kids later. But this was just kind of us getting together and celebrating their 20th anniversary. And what amazing thing to make it 20 years. I'm in that category myself. And I know, Roland, you've got some time under you as well. But just able to make it that long shows that through the trials of life, through the fires of life, through financial situations, through infidelity, through anything, that you can make it if you make a decision that this goal that you have in mind of having a happy and complete home is more important than your ego.
Yeah, they are really a true testament. As yourself, we're coming up on 20 years as well. And it hasn't always been easy, but it hasn't always been that hard either. And the Bible says, he that finds a wife finds a good thing and find favors with God, right? And a lot of times we miss the end part, thinking that we're going to just get the things that God has for us, even in our infidelity, even in our mess, even in our bad way of doing things. But when you put God first, at the center, at the head, at the core, you could get through anything. You could get through any trial, any mishaps or anything like that. But you have to keep him in the mix, right? We start messing up when we just want to put everybody else in the mix and exclude God, the same person we made our vows to, right? Because we didn't just make him to our spouse, we made him to God as well. a covenant. And so I commend Danielle and Hassani. I commend you and Maribel for the work that you guys do and the inspiration that you give to so many others. It is an exciting time. And despite contrary to popular belief, right, marriage is a good thing. Marriage is the new thing. I know a lot of people want to, live the single life and, they can live their best lives by themselves. But let me tell you, being married is a wonderful experience. And I'm enjoying the ride.
And, a lot of people get this idea and impression that there's, the grass is greener on the other side. And a lot of times I always tell people, if you think the grass is greener on the other side, you might want to water your own lawn. Yeah. And, there's some statistics out there that are just scary about divorce, because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be able to just go out there and do it again. The likelihood of getting remarried after you have children and over 30, the numbers are really ridiculous. And if I were to break them down by demographic, it's a little more dangerous. But there's an 80% chance that certain demographics will never marry over 30 and after having children. And so a lot of times we look at it, you have to look, is this situation repairable? I mean, there are definitely relationships that should be terminated. Physical abuse, any kind of sexual deviancy, these kinds of things. A lot of it is ego-based on one side or both sides, driven on that. And they fight about utter nonsense when the truth of the matter is they just need to redesign their marriage looking forward. Get divorced from the old marriage without leaving the partner and get remarried to a new idea of what marriage means. Because none of us go into it knowing exactly what we're getting into. I want to just acknowledge a few people here real quick, if I can, Roland. Cali Power Couple, I see you, Ben. Good to see you this morning. Treetop Palmer. I got Gonzalez. I know you're still out there, brother. How you doing? Sandy P. Robin Willis. Poppet. And from Melbourne, Australia. All right. Tiffany, we see you this morning. Thank you, too, for showing up. And I definitely want to say hi to JD and Lindsay. And I see you 21 years over there. Is that Nisi or Nessie? I don't know. Quintanilla. Yeah, I speak Spanish, too. So, look, at the end of the day, we want to celebrate all the people who are taking the struggles of life and turning them into victories and staying married. You were saying something, Roland?
No, I was just acknowledging JD Pruitt when you said it. I see the Foundry brother down there, so
JD.
Shout out JD.
Also, we're gonna break for a commercial really quickly here and get back into it. But if you guys have any questions about this and they are relevant, okay, relevant is the key here. I'm not going to answer just a random question, but if you see a sign that may be out there that you think is something we're missing, we got a whole list here. But if you see something out there that you think you want to bring up, please let us know. We're going to see you on the other side of this short commercial break.
When 45 men from all walks of life come together in one place for one purpose, there is a collective harmony that produces an amplification of power that leaves an impact on the lives of men that cannot be erased. A fraternity of legendary men, all at the tipping point, on the precipice of greatness, meeting for one weekend to turn their worlds inside out. For the first time ever, the Foundry Experience. Not an event, not a seminar or retreat, but an opportunity to come face to face with the man you were always destined to be. If you want a life that's better than the one that you are living, meet us January 2023 for the Foundry Experience.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources,
Watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples. Sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, we're back. Yeah, I just want to remind all the fellas out there, Foundry Experience is coming. We only got a few slots left. Like, gentlemen, if you're serious about going, you need to reach out because, I don't think we're going to have another. We might do some overflow. We may have to talk and discuss that, but get in while you can because that's a possibility, not necessarily a guarantee. Want to definitely acknowledge Tiffany Williams out here. She said, y'all preaching this morning, experiencing both. Why do you think people hide finances? My husband won't discuss finances with me. Maybe I come off super paranoid about money. Maybe that's off-putting.
So I personally think that's a control factor. If I can control the finances, I can control the dynamics of the marriage. I can control the dynamics of what you see I'm doing or not doing. And a lot of times what happens is in situations like that, we see that everything is being taken care of. The lights are still on, the water is still on, the bills are getting paid. But in all actuality, there's an underlying thing that's going on that's affecting the marriage. And it's just like anything. Like, we were looking at an article and talking about termites, and termites you can't necessarily see directly, right? But they're eating away at the foundation and the core of your house, right? And it's the same way in your marriage. There are termites eating away at the core of who you are as a couple and stuff like that. Hiding, the finances, hiding what you're doing, hiding where the finances are going. It's a thing. In any business, there's called an audit, right? And sometimes they're called an pop-up audit. Right, Jeff, I know you know about audits.
Trouble over here.
right. They call pop-up audits, right? And what happens is those things are just to keep you in alignment and to be integral or to remain integral. Talking about the finances is not a bad thing, right? It's easy to talk about when you want to get more, right? But then it seems to be hard when we're hiding what we're doing with the finances.
So when I'm going to say something as a counterpoint, because we have to be really careful because we don't always know everyone's circumstances, okay? Yeah. I am all for 100% transparency at all times. Bank accounts, cell phones, computers, everything should be transparent. However, when you're dealing with someone, and Tiffany, I'm not saying you, I'm just saying take this under consideration, just in general, for everyone else who's listening. If you're dealing with someone who is truly super paranoid about finances, it may be off-putting, just like you said. So what you have to do is you have to analyze, how do you react when you find out that there's trouble? Because if you're flipping out and then he's causing a paranoid situation, I've gone into situations that most people would be terrified of that just seem normal for me to handle, where literally large volumes of cash flow don't disappear, but they get misdirected to different things because of small emergencies. That causes a hiccup. For me, it's a hiccup. For my wife, it would be a nightmare. Yeah. Absolute nightmare, because she's not out there earning it. So like when she sees 5 figures move, she gets scared and terrified. But that's a daily occurrence in my world. What I would say is, you have to be open and receptive to not just be able to see the finances and not react, but be able to listen and learn. So one of the things we teach the men in Foundry, if you want something, then you have to be willing to learn, willing to accept change, and willing to put in the time and effort. The reason my wife doesn't really dig hard on finances with me, even though she's more than welcome, I show her all the time, she just loses interest real quick, is because I will not entertain an uneducated conversation about anything, ever. So if we're talking about investments and you've never read about investments, if we're talking about a strategy, tax strategy, or whatever kind of strategy, and you have not read about that, your opinion means nothing. Your belief means nothing. The last thing you want me doing is flying your airplane. I don't know anything. I haven't read a book about flying planes. And I don't want anybody running finances that hasn't read about it. So what I would say to the people out there who feel like there's a problem with finances, right, and that it may be leading to the destruction of your marriage, what is your willingness to learn? What is your willingness to accept change? What is your willingness to put in the time and effort necessary to understand the situation? Now, that being said, if someone is hiding things from you and you're constantly having events that occur that show financial irresponsibility, that's a problem. And there at least should be some kind of transparency. You should know what's on that tax form. You should know what's coming back. You should have an idea of what kind of money is available to you to run the household. Those things should be transparent in every single marriage. And you should be able to see what's going on with the bank accounts, credit cards at any given time. But having discussions about them when there's strategies involved, and if you know your spouse is a planner and a thinker and a reader and not just a reactor, that he's actually done the studies or she's actually done the studies necessary to kind of know what they're doing, and they've always been able to handle and manage, there's no reason for your paranoia. But being able to see it, you should be able to see it. But you have to control that paranoia. Okay? What else? We got a couple more in here. I see here. When you find it easier to discuss things with someone else other than your spouse, when a serious issue comes up, you're running over to your girlfriends or possibly, God forbid, another man to speak or another woman to speak with them about your issues, right? That could be a sign that your marriage is in jeopardy, that that it's failing. And I think this is a huge one, because when you're discussing things with outside people, a lot of times they may be your comfort, but not your best friend. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. I've watched this happen 1,000 times. There was a time when it happened in my relationships too. I would go and I would talk bad about my wife to the guy next door who didn't have a great relationship. And I'd watch my wife talk bad about me to her girlfriends, and they didn't have great relationships. And what you're doing is, it's misery loves company. It's the blind leading the blind. If you're going to speak to someone outside of your marriage for advice about your marriage, make sure you're speaking to people who actually have accomplished what you want to accomplish. Make sure you're seeking advice that allows you yourself to get the most commitment to change first before you look to change someone else. So yes, I think speaking to someone other than your partner about your problem is a problem, unless you're seeking the advice of wise counsel. Wise counsel means they've already done it and they've done it better than you've ever done it. Okay. What do you think, William?
And a lot of times we put ourselves in position to talk to people who really want what we have. You look at your own situation and you think that it is so bad, it is so, miserable and stuff like that. And then you go step outside and you go and talk to someone, outside of your spouse, when they actually want what you have. So then what happens is you bring your grievances to a person that want what you have. They're going to magnify their grievances. And now you're just exchanging grievances, but they really want your grievances that you have, believe it or not. And so we have to find a way to move away, to your point, Jeff, to talk to people that are doing what we actually want. We want to find people that can actually help us, and not people that just dump our grievances on, because it serves no purpose. It doesn't serve any one of us well, and just stay away from people that don't have your best interests. We call people our friends who really should be in the category of associates, and we allow associates to affect our marriages.
That's some Foundry teachers right there. These are people who will drag you down and leave you there. And you don't always know that they're going to drag you down and leave you there.
Yeah.
It's the experience of the prodigal son. You go out there in the world and they're all giving you attention while you're popular. The moment you fall, they're gone. This is easy to identify. Very, very easy to identify. Either that person is striving and working towards a goal and really about their lives themselves and trying to produce and overcome challenges and working on themselves and growing, or they're not. If they're not working on themselves and growing, then they're static. If they're static in life, then the typical thing is they're going to be a place of complaint, because static people are always blaming the government, the job, the husband, the child, the school system, the this, the that. It's a blame game. And if you have not done all you can do, which is a lot, believe it or not, if you haven't read everything you can read, if you haven't put into action plans everything that you could put into an action plan, if you're not on the task daily, then there is no room for complaints, especially in a marriage. We have to go to the extreme to do all that we can do. Most relationships that I see fail are when both partners have either quit or one partner has completely checked out and quit and is unresponsive to the spouse who's actually trying and showing up. And typically that is fear that they're going to get hurt again if they let down their guard. But what they don't realize is the pain that they're actually sitting in, trying to protect themselves, hiding in the closet the entire time, and how tormented and tortured that looks from the outside as everyone else watches you suffer because you're not scared to give love another chance. And so I believe in getting help, and I believe in resolving the issues and making sure that you guys are on the same page and the same path. But at the same time, I do not believe in running and hiding in a closet and saying, well, nope, I'm shutting down. That's it. I'm done. If that's the case, you're still in the same house, that's like torture. So I believe in making the commitment to actually work these things out and become the best version of you that you can be. The key to your marital restoration will always be your personal transformation. That does not mean don't put up boundaries and safeguards and a watch, but and a guard to see, to make sure that things are being done appropriately and lines can't be crossed. But you have to also embrace there is no courage in this world without vulnerability. Courage does not exist without vulnerability.
Hey, Jeff, you said a lot of things, man. And my wife is in the medical field. You know, a lot of times she used these big words that go over my head sometimes. That's above my pay grade, if you would, right? But I know there's a term DOA, which is dead on arrival. But then I found out there's another term, DNR, right? And a lot of times we are operating in marriages DNR. What's DNR? Do not resuscitate. So to your point, when the person has clocked out, right? When the person has gotten to the point where they've checked out of the marriage and they're walking around with a sign on their chest says DNR, do not resuscitate, they've given up. They've thrown in the towel. And that is a clear sign of a red flag that you need help. I would advise anybody that feel like their spouse is walking around with DNR on their chest to reach out and call us.
That's an absolute fact. And with that, I think we're going to leave it there. I mean, we are right there at the end here. And I want to thank you guys all for showing up. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Make sure that you're reaching out to people who may need the help and let them know about us. Because we actually do really care about the outcomes of the people we work with. I want to thank you guys for joining in today. And with that, we will see you next time.